Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review the 120th Doctor Who story, which is the 5th story in season 19 of Doctor Who, Black Orchid, starring Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor. I won't go into this too much, I'll just say that I'm still waiting for my new glasses, so if you saw my previous review, I explained why I'm not wearing my glasses at the moment. So I'm currently wearing contact lenses. Okay, so Black Orchid. This story is actually only 2 parts long, so it's about half the length of a regular Peter Davison story. But hey ho, and I believe it is the first 2-part story since the Sontaran experiment, so that's kind of interesting. So the basic plot of this story is as follows. The TARDIS arrives on Earth in 1925, where due to a case of mistaken identity, the 5th Doctor ends up playing in a local cricket match. The travellers accept an invitation to a masked fancy-dress ball, but events take on a more sinister tone as murders are perpetrated at the country home of their host, Lord Charles Cranley. That's basically your plot of this story. Black Orchid, you know, this is an interesting story. I mean, obviously it's only 2 parts long, so it's not very long at all. In total, the runtime is 50 minutes. So it really isn't very long. And I think it's good. Yeah. I like Black Orchid. Yeah. I think it's decent. I'm not going to, say that this is a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even think the plot is really that inventive. But it's basic. It's fun. It'll do. It's a good timekeeper. It's a good story to pass the time if you're bored. You don't really have to think about it too much. And you can just enjoy the thrills for the ride. I really do like the cast of the story. I think that's what keeps it interesting for me. I think the biggest shout out has to go to Sarah Sutton, who plays Nyssa, but in this story she also plays a role called Anne Talbot, and they constantly reference that the two look alike, and even in the masked fancy dress ball they end up wearing the same costume or similar costumes. I mean, it's kind of, not really that coincidental really. So I think Sarah Sutton does a good job in the other role that she plays. But I like her as Nyssa very much here as well. I think her acting is very good, especially in the scene when she's playing Anne, when Anne is being attacked by George, who is the son of the Cranleys, who has become a monster because of his exposure to the Black Orchid. And the end of part 1, when she's about to be attacked, that is pretty intense. That's when the tension starts to ramp up. The first part of this story is just kind of the introduction to the characters and to the setting and to the masked fancy dress ball. And I like that. And then part 2 is the thrills and spills and the intense stuff. I really like the sort of the way they depict the party culture, kind of the social side of England in 1925, how they had these masked parties and they're all dancing and everything, and the actors get to show off some of their dancing skills. Like Adric, Matthew Waterhouse, he gets to dance and he's not very good. Surprise, surprise. We also have Tegan, played by Janet Fielding, who gives a good performance, and she gets to do the Charleston, I believe. She does a bit of the Charleston, which is really quite interesting. And of course, Sarah Sutton as Nyssa probably has the most dancing of all of them, and I like that. I think that's pretty cool, and the choreography in the dance is very good. I am no dancer. I have danced in the past. I used to be part of a drama club, so I have done dancing, but not to that stage. So I think it was nice. It was a nice sort of deviation from what we've seen in some of the other stories. We don't normally get to see a lot of dancing in Doctor Who. The last dancing we saw was in that weird culture show in Fall to Doomsday, but we'll forget about that, shall we? I like the supporting cast as well. We have Lady Cranley, played by Barbara Murray, and Charles Cranley, played by Michael Cochrane. Both of them are really good. They make a good on-screen couple, and obviously towards the end you really do see their turmoil. They're not bad people. They're not trying to harbour a monster. This whole thing has kind of happened by accident, really, and they're just kind of struggling with what to do, and they're trying to keep up pretenses. They're trying to keep their son hidden because they don't want anything to more to happen to him. So I think it's interesting how we discover that the guy who is attacking everybody is George, their son. George is he's quite a big fella, and he has this kind of Frankenstein's monster look about him, which I really like, and I think that works in the favour of some of the more intense parts of the story. But in the first part of the story, he's wearing sort of a clown-like costume, and then the Doctor, you know, surprise, surprise, puts on the same costume, and then he is implicated in the attack, and he is under questioning for attempted murder, which is interesting. It adds a bit of tension to the story, but I think if I were to criticise this story, I think the ending is really rushed. Like the whole scene on the roof with George when he's holding Anne. No, sorry, not Anne. He's holding Nyssa. It's easy to get the two confused. He's holding Nyssa, and the Doctor is there. He's like, "Give her to me. Let me have her." And the other guy, is it Sir Robert or Tanner? I can't remember who it is, but there's another guy on the roof there, and he's also trying to help. I just think that ending happens way too quickly. There's not much of a climax to this story. It does seem very abrupt. There is this, like, George starts a fire and he breaks out of the room, and then, yeah, that's it. That's it. So I think the ending could have been drawn out a bit more, or there could have been more of a climax. A lot of the characters don't do anything in the climax. They're just watching from down below, which is interesting, really, but there you go. We also have another supporting character called Latoni, played by Ahmed Kali. He's this kind of native, I think he's this native Indian or whatever. He walks around with this massive sort of disc thing in his mouth. It looks really weird. It's really freaky. I mean, him and his costume and whatnot, he visually probably looks the most out of place of the characters, but he's not a bad character. He's the person that's kind of watching George and making sure he's okay, and he's obviously in cahoots with the family. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't do an awful lot in the story, but when he's there, he's quite good. It's just weird to look at him with that massive disc thing in his mouth. I think the set is wonderful. I mean, the manor house or wherever they are is really good, and it really adds a lot of atmosphere. The costumes are wonderful for this story, especially the dresses that all the women wear in this story. Especially like Nyssa and Tegan get to wear these really fancy dresses, and they get to keep them at the end, which is nice. Adric's costume is okay. And as for Adric, well, Adric doesn't do a lot in this story. He kind of eats. He eats all the buffet, and Nyssa actually takes the mick out of him. She says, "Oh, stop being such a pig," you know, which I thought was quite funny. And Peter Davison as the Doctor, he's good. You know, he's really found his feet now, and I think he is definitely more confident. And one thing I need to mention about this story is in the first half, the Doctor plays cricket. Of course, look at Peter Davison's costume. It's basically a cricket outfit, so the Doctor gets to play cricket. I mean, the Doctor will play sports again in the future. In the Matt Smith era, he actually plays football, but we'll get to that later. I really like the cricket scene, and it's nice to see the Doctor have some fun and play some sports for once. Again, this story offers some nice deviations to what we're used to. You can argue that yes, this story is a timekeeper. It's filler. You don't really need it in the season. It doesn't go anywhere, but it's fine. I think it's perfectly adequate, perfectly decent. The story probably could have been more inventive, but I think it's light fun. I think it's a fun romp. It's only 2 parts long, so the pacing zips by. I think the makeup on George is really good, and like I said, it looks like Frankenstein's monster, so I'm happy. So I don't really know what else to say. I guess the music is really good, and again, I love the dancing and everything. The script was written by Terence Dudley, and he did a good job. Directed by Ron Jones. Yep, very good. Very, very good indeed. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it, really. So I am going to score Black Orchid a 7 out of 10. I think it's decent. It's definitely better than the first 2 stories in the season, but it's nothing remarkable. Like, it's nothing amazing, but, you know, I like it. For what it is, I like it. So, that is it for my review of Black Orchid. Next time, we are going to be reviewing Earthshock, which is Adric's final story. Thank God. okay, I won't be too harsh, but it is Adric's final story, Earthshock, and the return of the Cybermen. Woo! Finally, after a long gap, a very, very long gap, it is time to bring back the Cybermen. Booyah! Okay, So that's it for this review. What do you think of the story? Please comment down below, let me know what your opinion is, and hope you've enjoyed the review. And stay tuned next time when I review Earthshock. So until then, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon. Bye for now.